Okay, so now it's going to get interesting. So in learning objective 7, we're going to put this demand and supply together to understand how prices are determined in equilibrium. And then ultimately, we'll be able to then use that framework to predict how various events are going to affect prices. And then as the semester goes on, we'll introduce this framework into the understanding of the macroeconomy. So equilibrium is actually a very simple concept. Okay, so the price in equilibrium is the one that makes quantity supplied and quantity demand equal to each other. So as you might expect, what it looks like if I draw the quantity and the price, I have a demand curve that is downward sloping via the law of demand. I have the supply or marginal cost curve that is upward sloping. Where is the quantity demand and quantity supplied equal to each other is where these two curves cross. Right? So when the price, I'm going to call it P star, is in equilibrium when quantity demand and supply are equal to each other. So once I'm at that point, there's no momentum for anything to change. Let's go way back to our chapter 1 material. We talked about this idea of equilibrium as being a principle of economics. And equilibrium is a state where there's no tendency to change. So think of the person in the lines at the grocery store, right? Those lines are in equilibrium if I don't have any motivation to change to a faster line. That's what we see happening here with demand and supply, right? The price adjusts to make sure that these two things are equal. So we'll do an example here in a second, but notice if the price was too high, so let's say our equilibrium price is $5. And let's say that the price was higher than that of $7. Notice what it means is that the quantity supplied is greater than the quantity demanded, right? So, and that makes sense given what we know about demand and supply. When the price is high, more people are willing to supply the good, but fewer are willing to purchase it. And so when the price is too high, we get what we call a surplus. Quantity supplied exceeds quantity demanded. Take those same things, right? And we can have a price that's too low. Say the price is $2. This is going to be quantity demanded, and this is going to be quantity supplied. So those are quantity demanded and supplied. And now we have a shortage. Right? More people are willing to buy the good at that price than are willing to sell it. Right? So take from a previous video, the Packers tickets example. So at the current market price, there's always a shortage for Packers tickets. More people want to buy them than the Packers are willing to supply at that current price, right? So in theory, in a competitive market, the price is always going to adjust to get rid of those shortages and surpluses to the point where quantity demanded equals quantity supplied. There's no momentum to change. So let's do I'll do this example first to kind of put this together, and then we'll come and we'll do an example of finding equilibrium. So this one here makes it important to understand why we distinguish between movements along the curve versus a shift in the curve. So let's say your friend makes the following argument, and it sounds pretty airtight, right? They say, all right, well, an increase in demand, so let's draw this out. Q and P, got supply 1, demand 1. Here's my price and quantity. And your friend says, all right, well, if demand increases, that's going to cause the equilibrium price to increase. They say, well, when the price increases, the law of supply says that supply should increase. So the higher price causes supply to shift to the right. And because supply shifted to the right, I don't know, depending on how much it does, whether the price is going to increase or not. Now, what's the hole in the argument? The hole in the argument is that the increase in the price when demand shifts moves me along the curve, right? I just move along the supply curve. That's the law of supply. So there is no subsequent shift in supply, right? Now, I was told only that demand increased. So I shift the demand curve, the price does go up, and that moves me along the supply curve, right? So this is going to take some practice, and this might be a little bit unclear, so it's kind of a contrived example, but we'll see plenty of examples of demand shifting or supply shifting, and I'll bring this point back up. But we don't want to get in this sort of circular logic where I say demand shifted, the price went up, therefore supply has to shift. No, right? If something shifts, the price changes, we move along the other curve. It doesn't necessarily shift. Okay, so in our next video, we will take an example here where we're presented the information in a table as opposed to graphically, finding equilibrium, looking at different prices and shortages and surpluses, etc.